So by now everybody's aware of the hot water that John Cleese got himself into recently when he took to Twitter to reiterate his point that he made many years ago surrounding London and how he thinks it's changed practically beyond recognition in saying that it hasn't become an English city. And I only spotted this today. I mean, I saw it was there and I didn't get around to looking at it. I finally did. And yeah, it was ITV that were talking about the tweets, and they really went out of their way to try and drive home this idea that John Cleese was racist, and they failed miserably. So here was the first person who tried entirely, even though from the outset they said that he never said anything about, you know, race, about saying, well, it's less English because it's become more black. Um, he never mentioned anything about that, and the host said for some reason people are accusing him of being racist even though he never mentioned anything about race. And here was what the first guest had to say about it.
All right, let me first of all start by saying that with age should come wisdom, but clearly with John Cleese, it passed him by.
Oh, John, you got burned there.
Britishness is not determined by the color of our skin.
He never said it was.
It's not segregation. It's all about integration. It's not exclusion. It's about inclusion.
And I mean, I love having different cultures around. But
now, this is the part, and I even knew from the outset that even after she had finished her monologue at the start, that when she managed to interject back in, she was at some point going to draw some inference and try and make the case that she herself has some right to British land. Now, I don't personally know her background, that if she is, however many generations she is, but she would do what a lot of people have done and say that they somehow have a right to live on British land because their ancestors were stolen, and, you know, the history of slavery and British colonialism, that it's basically the Empire Strikes Back, so to say. Now, you might think that that's an unfair analogy, but this part here shows just, it epitomizes how much she is actually just trying to turn this into an issue about race, and it's not actually sticking to the facts.
Went on to say, didn't
he?
He went against some of the criticism, and he said actually it's not about racism, it's about culturalism, and he said that it's not as polite as it was, humorous, it's not as friendly as it was. Those sorts of things.
That
is what he
is
was
such
saying.
nonsense. This is a man who left the UK because it's full of foreigners and moved to a foreign country. To become an immigrant. Please, let's not take him seriously.
November, because I'm fed up with the corruption in this country, and in particular with just how awful the newspapers are, and how the way in which they censor news, make sure that people in England don't know certain things, and particularly anything critical to them. Because I don't think you can run a democracy until you have reasonably reliable information out there to help people make up their minds how they're going to vote. And when we get proportional representation, and when we get Leveson 2 implemented, then I should be delighted to come back.
So that will tempt you back?
Oh, well, yes, because then I think we could actually do something, because this country is in a terrible mess at the moment.
Why is that? Just talk us through
Because I'm so disappointed with so much about this country at the moment, and I put my shoulder to the... Sorry, am I interrupting you? Sorry.
It was a little off-camera chat to our camera people. Yes, I'm with you.
You're with me. I just think that so much of this country is disappointing. And I put my shoulder to the wheel on proportional representation and then on Leveson 2. And when they were both kicked out by right-wing governments, I just thought to myself, all right, I give up. I'll try somewhere else.
Hang on.
So she says that he left England because there's too many foreigners and he doesn't like foreigners. So then he went to another country because he didn't like the foreigners there, which is ironic because if he hates foreigners so much, why would he become one? You know, so it just shows that she didn't do her research on it, and as I said, was hell-bent on just making this a race issue. And I wouldn't mind. These comments were made not even a year ago. I mean, I could certainly have some level of sympathy if they were made, 10, 20 years ago, where you actually have to do a bit of digging for them. But they're literally right there. They're on the Good Morning Britain YouTube channels, on the BBC Newsnight YouTube channels. And they're so recent. I mean, and it was a highly publicised story when John Cleese said that he was boycotting Britain. I mean, it really wasn't that hard to find. So the very things that they were talking about in there that they say epitomise Britishness, like the way the place is governed, he said that if proportional representation was introduced in England, then he would actually come back. He said he wanted Leveson too. He is pissed off with the electoral system, with the way the country is governed. He's pissed off with the media in the country. He legitimately never said anything about foreigners, and he actually decried the right. He just said right-wing governments have hijacked this country, and the right-wing governments are mostly associated with being anti-immigrant at this moment. So she is hell-bent on trying to sound intelligent when she's making a complete fool of herself. I quite like the next part, though. It's my favourite part.
I don't see how this has anything to do with race. Look at the England football teams full of black players. No one would question their Englishness, right? They're English. It's not about race. What he's talking about, I think, is that, look at London. 42% of people who live in London are, like me, foreign-born, right? So there's a very significant immigrant population in London. Obviously, if you have half of a city, essentially, that are people who are first-generation immigrants, that is going to make it less of the local culture.
No,
so let me give you an
racist
example.
comment.
Well, no, it's not. Well,
It's not just
first of all, it's nothing to do
racist.
with race. But look at this. Look at it like this: if 50% of the people who lived in London were Scottish, would we be okay to say that it's less English than it was when it was 10%?
We would say it
Would
is
that be
British.
okay? Well, no, but answer the question: would it be okay or not?
Would it be okay? I'm trying to get my head around that.
If 50% of the people who lived in London were Scottish,
Yes.
would it be okay to say that London has become less English than it was when 10% of the people who lived in London were Scottish?
Well, if they were Scottish, yeah.
Right, so what's the difference?
But
There's no difference.
There's
He's
a
talking
huge
about
difference.
immigrants.
But no,
He's talking
huge
about
difference.
immigrants.
But
That
So
is
it's
why
nothing to do with
that
race.
is why it has a racist connotation.
do you not consider yourself as English?
No.
Why is that?
Because I'm British. I'm a British.
So when you
Russian
go to
person.
Scotland, if you go to Scotland, so where have you come from? What do you say?
Well, I'd say I live in London. I'm originally from Russia.
But why can't you say I'm from
complicated.
England?
Because
Why?
I'm not from England. I
But
wasn't
you
born.
are.
No, I'm not. I wasn't born here. I didn't grow up here. I came here when I was
When you're in
13.
Scotland and
at
you're on the road
let me
and
make
there's
this
an
point.
arrow pointed towards England, do you not go that direction because that's where you're from, England? So why
I'm
can't
not
you
from
just...
England. I wasn't born here. I didn't grow
But you
up
just said
here.
are you from London?
No.
But where are you?
So I live in London. Well, I
Right.
live just outside of London, in fact, right? But I'm originally... It's complicated.
So this Russian guy does a brutal destruction of the idea that it's in any way racist or anti-immigrant. First off, by using the analogy of Scottish people, which was great to say, well, you would then say it's less English, so then how can you say it's about race because Scottish people are white? And the host was so pathetic, and you can hear him stuttering, and that part where he says, well, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. He was trying to buy himself time to try and weasel his way out of that. But then just the part where he says, well, when people ask you where you're from, where do you say you're from? I say I'm from Russia, but I live in London. But why don't you say you're from England? Because I'm not from England. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. I came from Russia to live in England. England isn't my birthplace. I was born in Russia and I came from Russia to live in England. So there's a transaction that's taking place there. But you're from England. It's like, and like, if there's an arrow pointed towards England, don't you go there because that's where you're from? No, it's not where I'm from. It's where I live. So place where you come from and place where you live are very often two different things. You know, when Irish people were in America, they don't say I'm from America, they say I'm from Ireland. By that logic, if you're saying you're from there, then you would say that Irish people have never emigrated then. If you're saying, well, I'm from America. So, and if you were to say, if you bring up the British people who moved all around the world, colonizing places, and settled there, well, then they were from that country then, if that's the logic you're going on. And I'm not saying that I agree with that logic, I'm actually just pointing at the flaws with it. And you know what? I'm going to be open and transparent with everybody here and show that you might call it an implicit bias, but it's nothing to do with it. But just for people who want to try and make that conclusion, enjoy this.